Alright, so you're probably wondering why I got an excavator and then I tore it, took it apart. And, well, I knew when I bought the excavator that it had the cylinder seals leaking on it. And I didn't just want to dive right into that. I wanted to run it a little bit. I wanted to see if things were working good. Hey doggy. And so I did that, and now I'm changing seals. I'm going to change the hydraulic oil on it as soon as we get the seals in it, and we'll be good to go. So that's the story there. Well, let's get into putting this cylinder back together. I got everything cleaned up. I got my new, this was my old wear bushing. It had some pretty good scratches in it. That's why I'm replacing it. Now, on a lot of the cylinders I rebuild, this is the first one I've come across that has a brass bushing, or I don't know if you call it brass. Let's see, what I do with the new one? Oh, right under my nose. But here's a new one. It's a split type bearing. It reminds me of like an engine. This one actually, it feels like they lined it with Teflon, which they probably did. But anyway, it's a little bit different than the original. I think this is the original one. It looks like it's brass. This one here's. Anyway, we got to press this into the cylinder head, also known as a gland nut. So one of the things I was going to look at is the location, the way this sits on the machine. This is, let me double check. Doggy. So this cylinder actually sits, this would be the top. This kind of sits at an angle, so probably best way to put it in would be to put the split in this to the side, because the weight of the cylinder's here and that rod is heavy. Maybe I should turn it with this to the top, but then sometimes you're going to have that cylinders get loaded that direction. So I'm going to line it up with this port here. That'd kind of give it a balance there, maybe. I don't know. The book doesn't tell me the best way to do it, so we'll do it the way we think we ought to do it. Now this is this is actually the cushion valve. This floats on the rod. I had to take, and it had a pretty good ridge built up from these kind of clank around inside of there, so it kind of mushroomed a little bit, but I'm just going to try to use the weight of that to tap it down in there. It doesn't fit just super snug, so but it's going in. Well, I got that stuck there. Come on, there we go. I may have to tap it down in there a little bit, but anyway. Yeah, snug fit. Well, now it won't fit. What did I do wrong? There's a slight bit of rust in this cylinder, and that, I suspect that's probably from sitting too long. This machine's 25 years old. It's only got 6,000 hours, so somewhere it didn't work. Somewhere along the way, it did a lot of setting steel, I believe. I've got this bushing here. I might not need to take it to the press. I'll just push it down in there with that. Okay, I think I hit bottom there. This is just like a 3 and almost a 4-inch piece of steel pipe I've got. And that actually got down deep enough so I think we can put the snap ring in it. I didn't put any oil under that. I don't think it needs any under it. It needs to kind of stay put in this. You don't want it moving around in this part because it would cause wear. So the snap ring goes in next, if I got it in there far enough. Screwdriver. Yeah, looks like she went down in there good. Ring turns, it's in there. One of the things I want to do before I get going here is my piston sealing ring is this one here. These are really hard to stretch out over that piston. They're pretty tight fit. So what I'm going to do is put this in a Ziploc bag with some oil in it and put it in the, I got my ultrasonic heater heated up to 80 degrees Celsius. Okay, so I got that piston seal. I'm soaking it in there to get it warmed up. And I don't know that this matters. I see guys all the time put these together dry, and then they'll grease the seals or oil them after they put them all together. And I don't do it that way. Call me an idiot or whatever. These seals need oil. And here's a good way to do it. Get you a coffee can lid, fill it up with oil. It don't take a lot to, you know, cover your seals up. But the reason I'm doing it this way is I had a professional shop do one for me one time, and I've probably told this story before, but some of you may not have heard it. It was on my backhoe. I had a cylinder, the piston nut, I couldn't get it loose, and I was in a hurry, and I called the shop, and they said, sure, bring it down. We can probably get it for you. And so I took it down there. I had them break the nut loose, and I said, well, I got the kit with me while I'm at it. Can you guys just go ahead and do it? And they're like, sure, we can do that. Not a problem. So I get the seal kit, or I get a seal kit in it. I start running it, and the backhoe cylinder, the rod chrome started turning black in about 2 days. Why did it do that? I called the shop that did the repair, and they said, oh, those new seal kits, they're just so tight. They just build the seal kits too tight. They didn't claim any responsibility for it. They said, bring it back, we can probably make you a new rod, and we'll put you a new seal kit in it. And I'm like, what's that gonna cost me? They're like, I don't know. They was probably around $600-700. Well, what ended up happening is I rebuilt it myself the second time. I put my own seal kit in it. I did it the way I do it, and it's never done it since. So you can call it what you want, dumb luck. But in my mind, you've got seals in here that when they're brand new, they absolutely hold oil. They absolutely don't have any leakage. There's a U-cup seal, and then you got a snubber seal. And what I think happened is the U-cup seal and the snubber seal put in dry. They probably didn't even grease them. They probably just slammed the rod in there. But there was a lack of lubrication, in my opinion. That's the only thing I can see that would have caused that to happen. Whenever I put the new seal kit in it myself, started running it, the chrome never turned black again. Everything was okay. It did some damage to the chrome, and I eventually had to put another rod in it. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So that, long story short, that's why I use oil, and this is the easy way to do it. Neat. It's not so messy. Okay, so looking in the book, I printed out the owner's manual, or operation, or service manual. Shows the directions your seals should go in. So this is the top, and so what we got in here is this black sealing ring, and I'll just explain it best I can. It has a groove, it has notches on this back side, and what that does, it allows pressure to come up under the seal. But it goes in first in that lower groove down by the bearing, or bushing. They call it a bushing on this one. So this one's pretty easy to install, fits in there nice. Next we have this black ring, and this one has a notch ever so often in it, like one on each side, on one side only. And I'm also going to put the slit down toward the pressure, and that one goes on top of that one we just put in. And I'm just going to try to work it in there with my fingers. I'm not going to want to kink it. Sometimes they go easy. I'll be patient with them. You got to be careful not to jam your fingernail into the you can fold your fingernail right over with these. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take, if I can find it, I'm going to take this rounded hook and I'm going to use this back side to kind of push it down against the bottom of that sealing ring, because there's two that sit side by side in there, and we want to be sure that we're seated. I don't want to use anything sharp. Just want to roll it down in there. The next one we have is a green plastic ring. Now I can't see a difference. This one seems square cut both sides, but it goes on top of that black one. Same deal, you just kind of work it in there. I've always called this a snubber seal. It kind of keeps the shock load off of the main. Now this one's going to be a little tougher to get in because it's not got as much room to work. There's probably a better term for it. I'm not a hydraulic man. I'm not a rebuilder. I'm not a professional. I'm a amateur. I've rebuilt a cylinder or two, but never one this big. This is the biggest one I've tackled. But they're all, actually the bigger ones are easier to get the seals into than the small ones because you got more room to work here. A little more flexibility on the stuff. The hard part is your wrenching. You're wrenching and you're lifting and all that's a lot harder. So there's that one. Next we got our U-cup. And then we've got I thought they had a better picture of that in here somewhere. Okay, our U-cup seal, that's this one, big white. It has, you can see it's wider, and it's also got a U-shaped lip on the bottom. The U-shape always goes toward the pressure, which is inside this, or toward the piston, if you want to put it that way. I've got a seal tool for that, but one with this size, I think you can work it in without a seal tool. Just want to be sure it doesn't snag like it did right there. There, use that little rounded edge of your pick. You're going to want to push that one down too, because this one has actually a backup ring on that U-cup. This one probably don't need oil on it, but it's getting it anyway, because now this has a slotted end, so you got to be sure those fit together right. And that is sharp on my finger. Kind of hurt. And then we're going to somehow force it. This is why people don't like putting them together wet. I think it's because their hands get oily. And it gets pretty frustrating. That did the trick. Just roll it in there with this bar. Like I say, you can put them in dry if you want to. That's your deal. So the only thing left on this cylinder, or this cylinder head, as far as seals go, is this wiper seal. Now these, I like to clean this up and put a little bit of bearing mount, or I think Loctite's the same thing. So what we want to do is clean all the oil off of here. Just use a little carburetor cleaner or ether or whatever you got handy, brake cleaner. Loctite can handle a little bit of oil, it doesn't hurt it. So I'm gonna probably I might regret this, but see, this thing might fit it. Nope. What I'm gonna do is just put some gasket, anaerobic gasket maker on that seal, and then we're gonna put it in there. We're jammed up. This is probably not necessary, but if this ever comes loose, you lose your seal there. So that ain't wanting to come out, so got a clog in the nozzle. Doesn't take a lot of this. Another rainy day in Oklahoma, so not much digging going on anywhere. Just gonna take a screwdriver and smear it around here. Next guy that has to take this out is probably gonna be cussing it. But like I say, I'd rather for it to stay in place and not get knocked loose. Now you want this seal, this one's the only one that has the lip facing out. It's a dust seal, so you don't want it facing in. I'm gonna use a really dull chisel, which I don't know of many toolboxes that doesn't have a dull chisel. I normally use a socket, but I don't have a socket that big. Yeah, there we go. This is gonna be fun. Now we go. So the only other thing this cylinder head needs are the seals that seal to the barrel. And I should have put these on while I had it flipped over here. So there's a groove here. Now this gets an O-ring and a backup ring. Now what the backup ring does is it keeps the O-ring from blowing out. So it's just a thin flat ring. So the pressure's trying to push this way. So we want the O-ring on this, backup ring outside the O-ring. And if you don't think it matters, I could show you proof it does. I've messed up on this before on a cylinder. So basically you want the O-ring first on top, or on the inside facing the barrel, and then you want the backup ring, it backs it up. So pressure's trying to push it out, the backup ring's holding backup pressure. So we got that done. All right, so the cylinder head's finished. We can set it aside. Now we're going to work on our piston. I kind of got some bits and pieces of my brass. Cover that up there. Okay, so this is going pretty good so far. This is usually where you run into a snag. This O-ring, there's several rings on here, but there's only one that really does the holding the pressure, and that's this center cylinder ring or piston ring. I'm going to work this down on there one groove at a time to try not to cut it or they fit pretty tight. I've seen guys use string to put these on, and it looks pretty cool, but I'm always afraid to do that because I feel like I'm going to cut them. Now my other ring's in the heater. I don't know that heat helps on these, but I think it does. So it's pretty much, there's going to be a fight either direction, so it doesn't matter which way you put it on. This one's grooved, you got little notches on each side of it, so it doesn't matter. That's what I figured. By the time I get it on there, it'll be cooled off, probably. These are pretty resilient though. I've got it in a mess, don't I? I'm just going to try to work it around there. Out of that groove into the next one. go. There we go. Alright, so by the time I get her down in there, she's stretched a bit. That ain't good. That's actually one of the worst ones I've ever seen go on. So before I put that on there, I'm going to put one of these plastic rings on. This is a spacer. Keeps the cylinder ring in the middle. I'm not going to bother oiling these because everything's pretty oily. So now I should be able to get my clamp big enough. Should be able to clamp her down. And we're about ready to start putting this thing back together. So I did use the B95 to break this nut loose on this cylinder, but it wasn't near as tight as I thought it'd be. I've had a harder time with B95 cylinders than I actually did with this one. So the book is weird because it says that we need to have 9,000 pounds of torque on this thing. Sure didn't seem like it had 9,000 pounds when I took it apart. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. I don't like how that's... These bands always got a little tang that pokes the side of that. Yeah, I got a little piece of plastic ruler that I can work up under there maybe. Hopefully that'll keep that from digging into that seal. I don't want to groove in it. That allows us to put the next rings on. These grooves are deeper, these are shallower, so you've got two sets of, I call these bearings, or they're just a wear sleeve type deal. And these are actually kind of a hard plastic, but the thinner ones of course go on the shallow groove. And the thicker ones go on the thick groove, or the deep groove. Thick, thin, thin, thick. And as far as you could space these gaps, it probably wouldn't hurt to put these two at 90 degrees apart. And these two here, you might want to put them 180 apart on these two, 90 degrees on your next ones. And then we're done assembling our piston. Our cylinder head is assembled. Now we've got to assemble the rod itself. So what you got is you got this seal goes on the rod. This one goes inside of here. This is a snubber, or why do I call it a snubber? I think that's what they actually call this. I probably called something else a snubber that I shouldn't have, but what this does is when it gets inside of the cylinder head, it slows down the flow of oil, and there's a groove cut in it that goes from thick to thin. The thick part is going to face the cylinder head. This is going to face the piston. But this ring here seals inside of it. So whenever you're running your excavator and you go all the way full stroke, this actually slows the oil flow down so it doesn't hit a hammer, or it doesn't smack metal to metal. So that's on the extension, and on the retraction there's a smaller one, looks kind of like it, only it's got a little bit bigger groove. It's a smaller bore, so it has to. But anyway, this goes beyond the piston and goes into the actual, there's a recess on the barrel itself, and this does the same thing when it hits the end of the stroke. When you're retracting, it goes from a full flow to it closes down to where the oil passes through here. It just slows everything down. You still got power, but you don't have the speed, so it slows everything down. And that one gets this ring here, which also will go on the rod. Now this this one needs to go on before the piston for sure. Then we will put the piston on. The piston has a shim that goes under the nut here, and the recess side of that goes toward the nut. You want to know, get that right. Then of course your nut will come on here. Anyway, it's just like you took it apart. You just got to reverse that procedure, put her back together. So that's the next procedure, is putting this snubber on a cylinder rod, which is right there. Like that. Wait, I did it wrong. Before you do that, put the cylinder on it, or the cylinder head on it first. There we go. Yeah. Now we're ready for this and the piston. No seal under the piston. And there, as I could tell, there was no Loctite on this nut. I'm not going to put Loctite on it. Wait, we got to put that together first. So before you put the piston on, be sure and put that goes that way. I'm going to put this sealing ring on here. If I can do it without breaking it. It's a real fragile thing, seems like. Put that in place. Put your two small clips in. Push this back that way. And your snap ring goes in. Tappy tap. Now you can put your nut on there. come to help. You gonna help me? Probably not. Probably not. So I think I got the ball lined up on the hole just about where it needs to be, close enough. That's pretty tight. I don't know that it's 9,000 pounds of torque tight, but we'll bring her back in here and set her up somehow, and we'll put her back together. We're getting there. So before I forget, we got to put this ball bearing, and you can see the dent down in there maybe. Ball bearing goes in, then we torque this to 42 pounds, I believe. So we don't want to forget that step, because once it's together, it's hard to get that in there. So 42 foot-pounds. I think it'll work. There we go. Now all I gotta do is Loctite and torque these bolts here. I wouldn't mind running that rod all the way in if I can get it to go. Not 100% sure I can do that, but if I let this down, it's probably gonna tip on the jack stand. Well, maybe not. But by having that all leveled up, it really makes it go together easier. That's why I like to use the jack stands on it. Yeah, we're tipping a little bit there. I'm really surprised a cylinder this big will move like that. Okay. Let's see if we can torque them. I think we got them all. All right, we're torqued. Okay, she's ready to go back on the machine now. Now it's a matter of me and the bee getting her back up there. Yeah, we got her rebuilt. Hopefully it works. We gotta get the back or the track, the excavator back in the right position so that we can get it straightened up. But I wanted to show you, this is one of the pipe stands I built years ago, and I made it to where I could put a chain clamp over. We used to do a lot of makeup work for industrial piping, so I used to have two of these, and I don't know where the other screw went, but I used to be able to like rotate it a little bit if you needed to get it just perfectly level. But it's nice because it keeps things from turning. You could see it was about to turn the stand over. I don't really have it in line perfectly, but I'll get the next one right. But those bolts torque to 270. This is the biggest cylinder on the machine, so I got the biggest, hardest one done, I think. I say that. I shouldn't say that because the biggest, hardest one may be coming up next. I don't know. I know they're smaller, but that doesn't mean they're going to be easier. But this one is all done, ready to go. I need to clean the end out here. I probably got some dirt in it when I was working on it outside there. But I'll get that cleaned up. I'm gonna get it rigged up to the backhoe and hopefully get it put together. Okay, got him rigged up. We're gonna see how it hangs here. I don't know. I'm just gonna lift it easily and see what happens. I hope I got it rigged about like I had it when I took it off there. Well, that ain't good, is it? That's about right. Now it should swing around to this way, just like that. And that way, if I get in the right position, I should be able to set it right on the, should be able to set it right up there. Anyway, let's I need to get my backhoe in the proper position so that we're about in the middle of that trackhoe up there, the boom on it. Set up our stabilizers here. I think we're about right. We'll see. I got water in the boom again. We got a lot of rain. That was a little rough. Extend the hoe out a little bit. We'll get it to stop swinging here. Ease her over there a little bit. I didn't quite get in just the right position. There went my washer. Can't really tell. It's not quite where I want it. We're getting there though. B95, such a sweetheart. Let's see what we got there. Not too awful bad. Bring it back to me just a little bit. Let's see, we'll do this way. See what that looks like. Kind of had it in a bind there a little bit. Oh yeah, that's better. Yeah, if we can get her shim back in place. Let's see. Washer's too low now. I wish B95 had voice command. They like swing left about 5 degrees, maybe 2. That's looking a little better. I'll be darned, look at that. Look at that. Would you look at that? Easy peasy Japanesey. Other than I didn't line up my pinhole. And we ain't quite lined up there, are we? Not sure what we're needing here. I think we need a little bit of up and something like that. Yes, sir. Now I'm going to turn it until I get that lined up. One pin in. This is going better than I thought it would. This is not edited either. I mean, parts of this video may be edited. This part's pretty much not. So spin that around until the pin lines up in this hole. Getting close there. Well, I said that. Who needs a service truck when you got a backhoe? I'd like a service truck. Don't get me wrong. Rock and roll, man. We got her in. Kinda. Okay, now set this block out here. Set that cylinder down. Oh yeah, I need an O-ring for that. Somehow lost it when we took it apart. It blew out of there. Alright, gotta get an O-ring for that. I need some wrenches. Wait a minute, there'll be an O-ring on that. Yeah, we'll find one. Okay, we're gonna stop for a minute because I just realized what I need to do next is bleed the pressure off of the So, since I've started the machine and moved it, I had to move it. But since I moved it, I'm gonna have to actually relieve the pressure off of the main valve because I've got those two lines capped and I don't want to pull them loose when they're pressurized because this thing's got 5,000 PSIs. It's a lot. So, just to be sure, I'm gonna look in the book. I know there's some places on this valve where you can actually check, or you don't check it, but, well, it's up there. But we'll have to break those lines loose, or not the lines, but the pressure relief valves. Got to get the right ones. I don't want to do the wrong ones. So anyway, we're gonna do that just for safety's sake. I don't want to have to go to the hospital today. Okay, so I got the lines all connected. I did relieve the pressure off of both of them, which I'm glad I did. It's easier to do it there than up here on top of the boom where it might blow in your face. So now it's a matter of getting this cylinder connected to there. I think I've actually got it curled up a little bit more than it should be. And I need to straighten out that rod. It's not really straight. So I think it's safe to fire the machine up. I'm going to try to burp the air out of that. I'm not sure how this is going to go. It might be bad, but we're gonna see what happens here. Close. Need to go boom up a little bit. too far. Huh. All right. Put you guys to work here. All right, tell me when we're lined up. How's that look? Is that pretty good? Tell you what, you YouTube guys are more useful than you thought. How'd you like that? Didn't mean to hit the camera. All right, we'll get this keeper pin in there. We got that one done. Sometimes I get lucky, because it ain't all skill, guarantee you. Like butter. Well, like margarine right now. Come on, get in there. There she went. Alright, retainer keeper going on next. 1 cylinder down, 2 to go. Good Lord, Elsie's tall. All right, now we can stroke it. Well, we got her Elsie's boom arm, or the arm cylinder's done. Hopefully it holds. Now we got to tackle the 2 boom cylinders. So the way I got it stretched out there now, we've got the maximum amount of oil out of the system, because all of our rods are retracted on their cylinders. So Well, not all the way in, but far enough. So, next, these two guys. I'm not sure when my kit's coming in for this one. I got that one ordered on the way. So to get these off, I have to push the pin over to one side to get that one down. I'll probably do these on the machine. I don't think I'm gonna pull them off. Although it was pretty easy putting them together in the shop. I'm still gonna be wrestling probably with the gland nut on the, or not the gland nut, but the piston nut on these. So I believe they're different wrench size. These are smaller cylinders, but you can see she's leaking pretty bad. And I don't know that any of these cylinders have ever been redone. I know the one I worked on didn't look like it's ever been apart in 25 years. That ain't bad, but this one's been leaking a while, but it just makes a mess. All that oil runs down here in the turntable. I mean, in the whatever that middle, that swingy thing, middle part. It gets all oily in there. Anyway, I got a little dirt on it because it's stuck in the mud. But in this cylinder here, I think the previous owner replaced the seals in it, but this rod has a pretty good, shouldn't say gash, but it's got a pretty good scar on it. So that one, to me, that one's not quite so bad. It gets the bucket dirty, but it doesn't get the machine dirty. Yeah, ain't that right, Roxy? Yeah. Old dirty dog. We've been rolling around in dirt. She needs a grooming. Anyway, so my plan is we'll probably pull this one off today. I'll check my tracking on the other part for the next one, but I went ahead and got new bearings for these two cylinders. I think if you got one leaking this bad, you're going to need bearings. I just didn't realize they didn't come in the kit. Most kits come with them. These big excavators don't. So, but that's a different type of bearing. That's a huge cylinder. I mean, that thing's massive. So the amount of weight just on that bearing is pretty big. But anyway, I think I got that one pretty much knocked out. This is a job that could be done inside the shop, but I don't have any room to do anything else if I got this sitting in there. So might need a bigger shop someday. We'll see how things go. Anyway, LC. Oh, I was going to show you where those relief valves are. Let me climb up on this big old thing. So the relief valve for the boom, or the arm, is here and on the bottom in the same location. And then this one up here is for the, I think that one's for the boom. There's also one on the bottom. And then there's a couple over here, but you take an 1.25" socket, you just turn this top part, and I actually turned this in a little bit too far. You don't have to turn them far, you'll hear them start releasing oil. And also, when you're working on these, there's a bleeder on this filter, or this oil tank, and I just set this clevis on there to keep that button depressed, because this tank will pressurize and it'll blow oil out more than you need out. So after we get all these leaks fixed, I plan on cleaning out the inside here, try to get rid of all the sticks, try to get rid of all the flammable materials, oil, grease, that kind of thing. And then, we'll go from there. Probably, I would like to run it some more and see how, make sure I got her in good shape before she goes out to a job site. But that's the plan for Elsie right now. the more I'm around this machine, the more I just love it. The size and power, and you know, everybody's giving me a hard time because I've always been about backhoes, and I've always been about they're better than excavators, and I agree to a point. A big excavator can do way more than a backhoe. A mini excavator, on the other hand, I'd rather have a backhoe than a mini and a skid steer. But that's just me, personal preference. So don't think I quit liking backhoes. These things are still the money. That's the money making machine right there. Maybe this one will be too. Time will tell if I can get in the right markets with it. I think there's a good possibility me and Elsie will make some money, but there's also a good possibility that B will be paying the bills for most of this venture. So not giving up on my footing work. I'm not going away from that, but I always have downtime on footing work that I need to have something else going on, and that's why we got Elsie. So what I think I probably ought to do is get a railroad tie and set across these tracks, and that way we can lay these cylinders down after we unpin them. So I've got the slack out of it, so there shouldn't really be any pressure in this one, but I'm not going to say there's not going to be some in there. Anyway, so just a matter of pulling the grease line off, snap ring off of the pin. If I was pulling the cylinder completely off, I could take these pins out and then slide it off of the pin, but I think it's going to be easier to leave these pinned up. That way I can turn the nuts here. This piece is going to be pretty much laying on the railroad tie, so that will keep things fairly neat. And I do have a nice mud hole to work in though. I might have to find some mat or something to throw over here on that, but we've been getting rain. Everything's green, everything's pretty. Wife's got the garden started. Anyway, springtime in Oklahoma, it's been a nice year so far. We've got a lot of rain. I think they said we set a record for April rain, and I'd rather see us go into summer on the wet side than not enough. So anyway, need to clean the old girl up. She's pretty dirty under there. But all this sticks and oil, if you get a spark in there, you got a fire you can't put out. So I do have a fire extinguisher in her, so I'm not an idiot. I used to be, but I haven't lost a machine yet to a fire, so luckily. But anyway, that's what we're doing today. About lunchtime, I'll probably take a little break, and then we'll get started on these two. Yeah, that's what we're going to do.